Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. We're 4 days away until BYU, the number 15 ranked Cougars, host the number 23 and rival Utah Utes on Saturday night, 6 p.m. in Provo. Extended radio pregame begins at noon. Yes, noon. It's a big game. We go extended, large pregame show. I can't wait to host it live in Provo to get you ready for the Cougs and the Utes. And let's dive further into the matchup as the coaches are talking in our top story of the day.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
Cougar fans just get fired up with Kyle Whittingham. You would never think that Kyle Whittingham was once a BYU Cougar. Whittingham was asked in his weekly press conference about BYU quarterback Bear Bachmeier, and this was what
have you seen from BYU quarterback Bear Bachmeier? And
I'm just going to focus on us this week, our guys, our coaches. So I'm not going to give much thought on the opponent this week. And so, really, you have to ask them, what they think of Bear.
It is what it is, man. And look, I'm not too worked up about it. I don't think you should either. Whittingham tries to get his team completely fired up for this game. It's a big deal, this matchup. It's a big deal on both sides, but they go about it completely different ways. Kyle Whittingham has had a ton of success in this rivalry. He's lost the last two, though, and he clearly wants to get back on the winning side of things in this rivalry. But I think that for Cougar fans, they just go, why? You were a former Coug. You love Kalani. You got a lot of respect for Kalani. Why not just say your thoughts on Bear Bachmeier? If you want to diss the man, diss the man. They don't want to give bulletin board material. It is what it is. I don't think there's anything to be too worked up about. It's just kind of wit being wit when it comes to this rivalry. On the flip side, Kalani was asked about Utah quarterback Devin Dampier, who transferred in for the University of New Mexico and has clearly ignited a spark in a Utah offense that was completely inept last season. Dampier's got Utah flying high coming into this matchup. This was Kalani on Dampier.
Yeah, super talented, and he's tough, man. He has great vision, and that's in the passing game and in the running game. He's an efficient player. So when you look at his stats, I mean, he knows where to go with the ball, and he's well coached. I think Jason Beck's done a great job tutoring him, mentoring him, and there's a reason why they brought him, with him. And so I think he looks really comfortable out there, and whatever you need him to do, he's willing to do it, and super tough. I think a lot of attention will go to his legs because he can run. But he can throw too, and I like this overall presence on the field. Definitely respect what he does, and he's going to be dangerous. He's got our attention. I know Coach Hill and the rest of the coaches are trying to find ways to try to see if we can disrupt his timing and disrupt everything that he can do positively on the field.
It'll be a tough test for BYU. There's no doubt about that. Dampier poses a lot of challenges. I don't put him on a higher scale than Noah Fafita, but what's different from Dampier to Fafita is he's got a much better offensive line in front of him. Utah's offensive line is really good, and the styles of these two teams is so similar. You look at the statistical profiles of these squads, they are just the same, man. They are physical football teams that want to run the ball, and they want to attack you through the air when the opportunities are there, but physicality is the theme of these two teams. And it's interesting, Kalani Sitake, of course, was mentored by Kyle Whittingham, and both of these men were coached in their playing days by Lavelle Edwards. There's so much history and so much connections and intertwining between these two programs on the coaching staffs between BYU and Utah. Jason Beck, the OC, played at BYU. Micah Simon, a wide receiver coach, he played for Kalani. Now he's at Utah's assistant. Jay Hill, of course, played for Kyle Whittingham as a player. Whit was the DC, and then obviously worked on his staff. So much crossover between these two staffs. And they run their football programs in very similar ways. They know each other completely. I was looking at this, and I thought it was interesting. Since 2016, when Kalani Sitake became the head coach at BYU, BYU is 78-43. That's their record. since 2016. Utah 77 and 41. These two teams and programs are just very much the same. And I bring that up too because I think BYU kind of gets completely overlooked at times nationally as far as success compared to Utah. Now, keep in mind, BYU's success took place primarily during independence, and there were some seasons like 2020 where the schedule was really weak, but still, BYU's recruiting rankings would suggest that they were punching well above their weight and still having quite a bit of success. And in that 78 wins since 2016, they've got 2 wins over Utah, and Kalani Sitake is looking for his 3rd consecutive win over Utah. It'd be the first time since the Ty Detmer years that BYU reels off 3 in a row over Utah. You got to go back to 1989 to 1992 to find the last time BYU won 3 in a row. But there's so much crossover between the programs. And Kyle Whittingham, as much as Cougar fans want to get frustrated with him, he did give some praise to Kalani and the coaches that worked with him that are currently at BYU. This was Whittingham on Kalani and the connections from BYU staff.
You know, as the head coach, that's your responsibility to mentor your staff. A lot of them don't need much mentoring. They're really good coaches just on their own. They stand alone. But you're right. There's a lot of coaches down there that were here. Grateful for what they gave us while they were here. They were all outstanding for us and did an excellent job. And you know, Kalani is a good friend of mine. That's no secret. And he's become a outstanding head coach, and you know, that's just, you know, back to your original question is you know, you want to do everything you can as a coach to help your assistants progress, get to the next level, whatever that may be, coordinator, head coach, somewhere else, you know, whatever the case may be. I think that's an obligation, and one of the core responsibilities of a head coach is to try to get his staff to be able to excel and progress.
Whit took care of Kalani and did a lot for Kalani when Sitake was his DC at Utah. I mean, I remember there was a lot of reports about the friction at the time between Whittingham and Dr. Chris Hill, the former Utah AD, because they weren't investing at a high enough level in the football program to retain the coaching staff. And Kalani then went on to Oregon State to work with Gary Anderson, and those coaches now are at BYU. A lot of the similar philosophies that Whittingham has in building up Utah during the Pac-12 and now the Big 12, Kalani has implemented at BYU in building up the Cougars during the Big 12. And BYU is back-to-back seasons at 6-0. He's built up a great program, Kalani has. It's always been a good program, BYU, but there was trying to get it to another level, to get it to greater heights than where they were before. And he looked kind of at the blueprint of what Utah did in the Pac-12, and it's worked quite well for BYU. Also of note in this game, first top 25 matchup in the rivalry since 2009. I was curious, the last time Utah beat a ranked BYU team in Provo, you got to go back to 1999. BYU, as a ranked team over the Utes, is 3-0. Since that 1999 season, they won in 2001, 2007, and 2009. BYU comes into this matchup ranked for the first time since 2012. It's been a long time since the Cougs were ranked against the Utes. Let's take a break. We'll get to more Cougar Tracks and BYU versus Utah rivalry breakdown right here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper with you. Subscribe to Cougar Tracks every day it's available. High noon on KSL Sports YouTube. Watch these videos. Give a like to the video. Subscribe to KSL Sports YouTube. And subscribe to the audio podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Give a 5-star rating and a review. It would help out the show a ton. Before we get back to more BYU and Utah talk, I did want to dish out my midseason grades for BYU football this season. Can you believe it? Already at the midway point of the season. 6-0 is BYU, and they are flying high. But at the same time, I think this team still has yet to play its best football. I don't feel like they've hit their peak yet. And that's reason for optimism. I think that's something that should excite Cougar fans. Despite the schedule getting significantly tougher in the back half of the season, BYU has yet to play its best football yet. I think they can continue to grow as the season progresses, but the challenges, of course, are going to get more challenging. I think Utah, then Iowa State, which is a 1:30 p.m. kickoff on Fox on October 25th, then a bye, then at Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati's going to be challenging, and then UCF to close it out. That's the final 6 games of the season. But I want to dish out some grades, midseason report card. And let's just start off with quarterback. Quarterback, I got to give it an A-. I'm not saying quite an A just because there's still room to improve for Bear. I don't feel like it's a perfect product yet for Bear Bachmeier and this QB position, but dang, it's to be at 6-0 with a true freshman in a power league. It's been quite impressive. Bear Bachmeier has been so poised. He's been so collected. He's done a great job for BYU. Now, the past 2 games, turnovers, got to clean that up. That has to be fixed going forward. Do not put the ball on the turf. You can't assume Kyle Safarichuk is always going to show up and recover that football. Got to take care of the football. And Bear has done a really good job of that. Only 3 interceptions this season, 2 of which were in the Arizona game, and 1 was off a bad snap where he's trying to make a play on the fly. Learning opportunities for the young freshman signal caller. But 1,220 passing yards, averaging about 200 yards per game. And then rushing the football, he's the second leading rusher for BYU this season. 71 carries, 295 yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. Bear has done an excellent job this season. It's not textbook quarterback play, but he's doing what BYU scheme is asking him to do, and he's doing it at a high level. A- grade for the quarterback position, and still room to grow for Bear. Running backs, I'm going to go B+. And I say this, it should be honestly an A+ with how good and great LJ Martin is. He's the best running back in the Big 12. LJ is the best running back in the Big 12, and I think he's one of the 10 best in college football. LJ's a superstar. And that's why I almost hate putting a B+. But there's no one else in that group beyond LJ. He's it. He's it. There's no one else. Preston Rex, maybe. Sure. Had a nice catch out of the backfield. You can build off that. 1 catch, 16 yards against Arizona. But after Sione Moa got injured, there's no one. And as Aaron Roderick said last week with Sione Moa, it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a while. So who do you turn to after LJ? Bear. But those 2 guys are so critical to the success of this team. BYU had to run the football 22 times with Bear Bachmeier. That scares you a little bit because that's a lot of hits on your QB. And that's wear and tear on the QB, and he is critical to the success of this team, and so is LJ. So many shots taken to those guys. And you got to keep riding with LJ. 25 carries against Arizona. That workload's got to continue. You would have liked to have been in a spot where it's, 18-20 and then 5-9 with a reliable number 2 running back. BYU has to hit the transfer portal hard, to me, after this season to build up the running back room because it just, I know injuries have played a role in this, but there's no one to turn to. There's no one right now. And that's concerning for the Cougars. So that's why what should be an A or an A+ because of LJ, it's a B+ because there's no one else. And there's such a thin margin for error because if LJ gets banged up, my goodness, I get frightened for that position. Wide receiver, I'll go B, maybe B-. I'll say B because I like the speed from that group, I like the athleticism. But losing JoJo Phillips was pretty noteworthy. BYU's been okay since that injury to JoJo, which happened against Stanford. Chase Roberts is the leading receiver for this group. Where I think they've kind of struggled is there's been some uncharacteristic drops. It's happened way more often than I expected this season. And that has to clean up. Look, to me, when you're a upperclassman receiver, there should never be a drop. If you got a hand or two on it, you got to catch it. You cannot drop the football. And drops have happened way more often than I'd like to see. But there's been a lot more explosive plays since the West Virginia game with this group. Chase Roberts, the 85-yarder against West Virginia. Parker Kingston popped off a 75-yard touchdown. Big play abilities. And that's what you want from this group. And so I'll go B at wide receiver. Tight end, B-. Carson Ryan's pretty much it. Now, Kean Need's good as a blocker, but again, he's not a factor in the receiving game. And then that's pretty much it. You know, there was a flash in the pan in the Portland State game with Noah Moeaki, and you thought, oh, Noah, he's emerged. He's a thing. Nothing since. Carson Ryan, too, he had probably his toughest game as a Cougar against Arizona. Some drops, some uncharacteristic mistakes, but you got to like what Ryan's done. 14 catches, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns. The tight end position is a threat in the receiving game, but there's really not much depth after Carson Ryan as far as receiving threats. He's it as far as the receiver goes because there's no one else. Offensive line, I'll go B. Maybe B+, but I'll say a solid B. I think there's room to grow for them. They've had some penalties that have been costly at times. They've given up a few sacks. It happens, but I like the talent, though. The snaps with Bruce Mitchell in that Arizona game, got to get that fixed, cleaned up. Don't let that happen again going forward. But I like the talent. The rotations, too, at guard have been interesting, where you're pretty much playing 7 guys every single week, which is very uncharacteristic for just any offensive line. Typically, you go with 5 and you play them every single down, but they're rotating guys and keeping those guys fresh. O-line, sound. I think they're good. I think they're better than potentially even last year at stretches. Defensive line, B. Now, you might think that's way too high for this group. You got to remember, though, the scheme, we don't know all the nuances of what they're trying to accomplish scheme-wise. But then you look at the numbers. Rushing defense, 23rd in the nation, 104 yards allowed per game. BYU is stopping the run. And a lot of that's because of the defensive line. Logan Latui's been solid. You wish that this defensive end group would have some sacks. I know K-Pop has said sacks are overrated. But you'd still like to have some edge rushers to get home and finish the job. I will say, Tausili Akana, his emergence in the Arizona game, I want to see more, man. I want to see more of Tausili Akana for this team. I was talking about him in fall camp. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just a mirage when I was saying this dude's showing up and balling. Tausili Akana has an elite first step. He is fast off the edge. He's got speed. Now, learning the scheme and not making mistakes and going out of your 111th, maybe there's going to be more margin for error for him. Whereas you can trust Logan Latui, you can trust Bodie Schoonover, you can trust Hunter Clegg, who's really taken to the playbook quickly. Clegg's going to be a good one for the Cougars, but I think Schoonover's improved. I think Logan Latui is solid. He's got to fix the offsides, too. That to me is just, you can't have that happen anymore. But again, I think they're a solid group. Defensive line, B. I think Keanu Tanavasa, John Talmoipeo have done a solid job. I think people kind of not overestimate's the wrong word. Look at the D tackle spots. I'm not looking for sacks from those guys. I'm looking for them to draw so much attention to free up the playmakers on the back end or the second level of that linebacker unit. I don't look for D tackles to be sack artists. So when people are saying Keanu's only got 1 sack, yeah, that's not uncommon. That's D tackles. That's just what they're doing. Like it's a thankless job in the interior of a defensive line in many respects. But they have the ability to do that. I mean, the amount of attention Keanu draws, when you watch in the trenches, it opens it up for other guys to make plays. It's not like if he's getting unaccounted for, well, good luck, because then he's going to make those plays that you expect. So I think the D line, I give them a B. Linebackers, an A. And that's even with the game where Jack Kelly's banged up and Glasker's banged up. This linebacker unit is really good. Sialia Serra, stud. 16 tackles last week. against Arizona. They're trending up. And remember, they lost Che Bryant-Strother. He hasn't played. And he was a star in fall camp where he was 1A, 1B with Cialia Serra. So they've taken some injuries. Still, though, the depth is there. You've seen some good flashes from Max Alford, from Miles Hall. Ace Kafus, he's going to be a great player for BYU. Linebacker, they're legit. They've got depth. And then when you get Jack Kelly back, away they go. Secondary, I'm also going to give them an A. Team passing efficiency defense, 6th nationally in college football, 101.45. Secondary's been really good, man. Evan Johnson, Shmev, he's cornerback number 1. He got slept on way too much this year. And remember, in spring football, he missed all of spring. Didn't practice at all. Didn't get any first-team run. It was all Therian Alexander III and Maury Bamba. And Shmev has just been an absolute baller. I love his... And the thing is, he's not finesse either. You would have thought as a guy that was kind of learning the game of football that he'd be more of a finesse speed guy. No, he's shown an ability where he likes to lay the hit stick. That Colorado game was a great example of that. And then his playmaking ability too. Shmev has been really good. And then the secondary with the safeties too. Tanner Wall, Raider Namuni, I know he's banged up, but really good this season. Faletau Satuala is a playmaker. The love that Jay Hill has for Faletau, you've been seeing it week after week, the playmaking ability that he has. Tommy Parasis as well. And I think the secondary is only going to get better when you get Jonathan Cabella back. The secondary has improved quite a bit. I think that considering where they were to start the year, maybe the A is partially because of the low expectations, or modest expectations would be the better way to put it, after losing Jacob Robinson and Mark Collins. They've been sound, man. And then you look at the numbers, the interceptions. This group is doing a really good job. BYU secondary gets an A. Special teams, I'll go A-. You could maybe go a little bit lower at B+ because some of the head-scratching punt return decisions and mistakes early in the season, they're finding their stride. Will Farron also has missed some field goals this year. And then you had that fake punt that didn't work at Arizona, but there's also been some great fakes against West Virginia and other spots. But overall, A-. I think they're a really good special teams group. There's a case to be had that they could be an A, but I'm getting a little nitpicky because last year was a emphatic A. I don't think they're as good as last year's special teams unit this season yet. But also keep in mind, I think Sam Vanderhaar has also been better as well, the punter for the Cougars. I think he's done an excellent job this season. So A- with room to grow. Wouldn't surprise me by season's end if BYU special teams is at a solid A. That's your midseason report card for BYU football as they get ready for the second half of the season, and all the action, of course, can be heard right here on KSL News Radio. Taking our final break. On the other side, we'll get to the intensity of the BYU-Utah rivalry next here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper with you. So much is made about BYU and Utah, the rivalry, the history, and the intensity of the series. Look, I've lived it as a kid. I lived it growing up. I lived and died with every BYU-Utah game. They are seared into my soul. I remember everything about not only the games, but the entire day. You just remember everything about these games. They're special, man, and they carry so much weight, and they have bragging rights, and you want those bragging rights as a fan, and then the thrill of that victory. It's just so satisfying to get that win. It just is. It is such a rewarding feeling. Even if your season is in the dumps, the chance to get that win in the rivalry was all you needed to be happy with that season. So BYU and Utah has always been intense. And there's been some talks this week that with the return to the Big 12, is the game intense like it was back in the Mountain West and WAC days? I will say, during the Kyle Whittingham Bronco Mendenhall years, it was as intense and as nasty as you'll ever find it. And I don't think we need to go back to that because there were sideshow antics every single season. We don't need that. But I will say, I think there's more respect between the two coaching staffs now because they've all worked together. They've all basically interacted with one another through coaching circles. But the intensity has never wavered. These fans have always 365 gone at each other, whether it's social media, family gatherings. It's BYU and Utah. They're never agreeing with one another, these fan bases. And that's the beauty of this rivalry. And I'm glad that Fox Big Noon Kickoff understood the moment and said, we're going to Provo for BYU and Utah because this is a big-time game. My former colleague, Matt Biamonte, had a viral post on X talking about how he wished College Game Day came out to BYU and Utah instead of Ole Miss, Georgia, because cover the entire sport. They never come out to Big 12 games. What people don't realize about BYU and Utah is just there is such a deep passion in this state for college football. You got that one. And then you got private versus public. You throw in religion into the mix. There's a lot of LDS people on the Utah side, but then there's a group that isn't. You bring in religion to anything, it adds a layer of intensity that's can't be described really in many rivalries in college football. Look, I'm biased and I've lived this thing my whole life, but this thing is off the charts good. And the stories, even in the doldrums of the summer, the off season, it's unreal. Some of these things that you draw up and you say, like, oh, there was a BYU linebacker who got suspended because he went to a Vegas nightclub. And there was an anonymous Utah fan who snitched on him and he got reported to the honor code office and then got suspended. That sounds crazy, but it happened. This rivalry is unreal. It's incredible. And the head coaches were asked this week about the intensity of the rivalry, and Kalani Sitake was asked about it, and this was Kalani's thoughts on the intensity being ramped up by being in the Big 12.
I think the competition has always been there and the intensity can be there. There's nothing wrong with the intensity being there. I just, me personally, I would like to see it be like with tons of respect. You know, whether we want to admit it or not, we actually need each other. You know, this is a great rivalry when we have each other on the schedule, and regardless of the outcome this weekend, I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen that we'll probably need each other's help. And so I don't think I've said it before that you know, wishing bad things on others is not good for the soul. And I'm not trying to tell fans how to do it, but it's got to be a lot more fun when you can actually have and talk about the respect that you have for each other, and that there is connection from both sides. I mean, you just look at the coaching staff and on both sides, you see the impact on both schools have on each other. I mean, that's just the type of rivalry that it is. And
I will say that I agree with Kalani in that these two, when they are together in a conference, it builds up leagues. And if they are ever a package deal, be a great realignment acquisition. Now, Utah has shown their hand. They're never going to want to be a package deal with BYU. They want to go to the Big Ten one day. Big Ten's never going to call BYU because Big Ten in many respects is like the Pac-12, but they actually care about football. But when they're together, though, it is an incredible game. When it was a non-conference game, it was intense, as I noted. But I will say that there was feelings, and I understood it from both sides, where just be done with the game. Just be done, because BYU, you had the chance to schedule anyone you wanted in the month of September in college football. And for Utah, they wanted to stretch themselves out and go to play Michigan and Florida and things like that. So I understood that. That was, to me, fine. But when you're in the league, it's a league game. It is so intense. And even Kyle Whittingham on the intensity of being back in the Big 12 or in a conference, he even acknowledges that it's kind of getting back to what it once was.
Yeah, I think it's always been intense, for sure, and conference implications certainly add to it. And you're right, there was a period of time there where we weren't in the same conference. I think in the past, when we were in the Mountain West, and the game being held in the last slot of the season, last game of the season, that added to it as well. As of right now, it's not the case. It's what are we, dead center just about in the season, and so I think it's almost the same as it was when the Mountain West was in, when we were in there, but just not quite, because the build up throughout the entire year to having the last game is a little bit different than playing it right in the middle, in my opinion.
The dead center scheduling, though, worked out, because the stakes have never been greater, I think, in this rivalry. It goes beyond bragging rights. It goes now to conference championship race. You have to go back to 2008, the last time there was an undefeated team and a one-loss team in this game. High stakes. I think this is the highest stakes game since 2008, but then you add in the fact that it's network TV on Fox, not the Mountain. This thing should be really good on Saturday night. We'll have more BYU versus Utah talk tomorrow and throughout the week here on Cougar Tracks, but that's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you tomorrow here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports. Go to KSL Sports YouTube and always listen to KSL News Radio.